About time.
Think you know everything about the movie that launched the modern superhero era? Think again. What I'm about to reveal about X-Men will completely shatter your reality. We're talking about real blood, real stabbings that sent people to the hospital, and casting decisions so insane they nearly destroyed careers before they started. But nothing, and I mean nothing, will prepare you for fact number 1. It involves a conspiracy so twisted, a cover-up so massive, that it nearly prevented this movie from ever being made. The truth about what really happened behind the scenes will leave you questioning everything Hollywood has ever told you. Let's count down the 20 most explosive secrets they tried to bury. Fact 20. The unknown actor who stabbed his co-star. Hugh Jackman wasn't supposed to be Wolverine. He was a complete unknown, a last-minute replacement who had never done an action movie. But on his very first day of filming, he accidentally stabbed someone with real metal claws. The metal claws were real, and Hugh Jackman accidentally stabbed someone on the set of the first X-Men film. This wasn't a movie prop malfunction. This was an inexperienced actor wielding actual weapons he couldn't control. The victim required immediate medical attention and stitches. Blood was everywhere. The insurance company went ballistic, and studio executives seriously considered firing Jackman before he'd even finished his first scene. But that stabbing was just the beginning of Jackman's dangerous obsession with authenticity. Fact 19. The cold shower ritual that created Wolverine. Hugh Jackman took ice-cold showers every morning of filming in order to help get into character. This tradition started when jumping into the shower at 5 a.m. before realizing there was no hot water. But here's the twisted part. He realized this self-torture was perfect for Wolverine. The mindset, wanting to scream and lash out at something but having to hold it in, was the mentality that Wolverine is in constantly. Every single day of filming, Jackman subjected himself to freezing water, using genuine physical discomfort to fuel his performance. He turned daily torture into method acting, and that rage you see on screen, it's real pain converted into authentic fury. The crew thought he was losing his mind, but Jackman's masochistic preparation created the most believable Wolverine anyone had ever seen. And speaking of believable, wait until you hear who almost got the role instead. Fact 18. The A-list actor who saved Jackman's career. Russell Crowe was the first choice to play Wolverine, but he turned it down, instead recommending his friend, actor Hugh Jackman, for the part. But Crowe didn't just recommend Jackman, he literally saved him from obscurity. Jackman was completely unknown, while a number of more established actors offered their services for the role. Here's the kicker. Jackman's wife, Deborah Lee Furness, told him not to do it after reading the 3 pages he was given. His own wife tried to stop him from taking the role that would make him a global superstar. The studio executives were furious that Crowe had bypassed the entire casting process to help his unknown friend. But Crowe's gamble would pay off in ways nobody could have predicted. Fact 17. The height discrimination that almost destroyed everything. Jackman was initially rejected as he was deemed too tall for the role. Think about that. The man who would become the definitive Wolverine was almost fired before he started because of his height. The comic book Wolverine is supposed to be short and stocky. Jackman is 6'2", completely wrong for the character. Studio executives spent weeks trying to replace him with someone shorter, even after filming had begun. They considered using camera tricks, digging trenches for Jackman to stand in, and even digital effects to make him appear smaller. The production was hemorrhaging money on height solutions while Jackman lived in constant fear of being fired. But the real casting drama was happening with the movie's most prestigious role. Fact 16. The Shakespeare legend who almost walked away. Patrick Stewart almost didn't play Professor Xavier. The classically trained actor was reportedly horrified when he first read the script, calling it comic book nonsense that would destroy his Shakespearean reputation. Stewart had spent decades building credibility in serious theatre. The idea of wearing a bald cap and pretending to read minds in a leather wheelchair seemed like career suicide to the distinguished actor. He demanded multiple script rewrites and threatened to quit several times during pre-production. The studio was terrified of losing their most prestigious cast member and kept rewriting scenes to make them more dignified for Stewart. The tension between Stewart's classical training and the comic book material created constant conflict on set. But that was nothing compared to the real war brewing between the film's two legends. Fact 15. The secret feud between two acting giants. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen's on-screen friendship as Professor X and Magneto was completely fake. Behind the scenes, the two legendary actors allegedly couldn't stand each other during filming. Both men were classically trained Shakespearean actors competing for who had more gravitas and respectability. Their egos clashed constantly, with each trying to outperform the other in every shared scene. Crew members reported tension so thick you could cut it with Wolverine's claws. The two men would barely speak between takes, communicating only through assistants and intermediaries. The irony is devastating. Their characters' friendship was one of the movie's most touching elements, while the actors playing them were engaged in a bitter professional rivalry that nearly derailed production. Fact 14. The stunt coordinator's nightmare. Hugh Jackman's first scene in X-Men resulted in him and a stuntman exiting with major injuries. This wasn't just Jackman getting hurt, he was taking other people down with him. The accident was so severe that both men required immediate medical treatment. Blood covered the set, filming stopped for hours, and the insurance company launched an immediate investigation. But instead of making Jackman more careful, the accident made him more reckless. He became obsessed with doing increasingly dangerous stunts himself, pushing his body and his stunt doubles beyond safe limits. Over 7 X-Men Wolverine films and countless sets of razor-sharp claws, the accident-prone Australian has suffered his share of punctures and painful injuries. Every scar, every wound, every drop of blood was real. Fact 13. The weapon props that were actually weapons. Those iconic Wolverine claws weren't movie props. They were actual metal weapons that could genuinely kill someone. The production used real steel blades that were sharp enough to cut through skin, bone, and anything else they encountered. Multiple cast and crew members required medical attention after accidents with the claws. Jackman accidentally sliced his own hands numerous times, leaving permanent scars that are visible in later films. The insurance company repeatedly demanded they switch to safe rubber props, but Jackman insisted on real metal for authenticity. He was literally walking around set with deadly weapons attached to his hands, and people kept getting hurt. The fact that nobody died during filming is honestly a miracle. But the weapons weren't the only dangerous element on set. Fact 12. The makeup that was slowly poisoning Rebecca Romijn. Rebecca Romijn's Mystique makeup took 8 to 9 hours to apply every filming day, and it was allegedly toxic. The blue body paint contained chemicals that were slowly poisoning her through skin absorption. After weeks of filming, Romijn began experiencing headaches, nausea, and skin irritation. Medical tests revealed elevated toxin levels in her bloodstream from the daily chemical exposure. The makeup department knew the paint wasn't safe for prolonged use, but changing the formula would have required weeks of new tests and millions in delays, so they kept poisoning their actress day after day. Romijn suffered through months of chemical exposure that could have caused permanent health damage, all for a movie transformation that looked incredible on screen, but was literally toxic in real life. Fact 11. The CGI cover-up that fooled everyone. What you thought was practical effects was actually groundbreaking CGI that the studio desperately tried to hide. Many of the mutant powers, especially the metal manipulation scenes, used revolutionary digital effects that were far beyond anything audiences had seen. But the studio was terrified that audiences would reject CGI in a superhero movie. This was 2000 finest CGI was still considered fake-looking and inferior to practical effects. So they launched a massive publicity campaign claiming everything was done with practical effects, wire work, and movie magic. The truth about their extensive digital effects use was classified information that only key crew members knew. The cover-up worked so well that even industry professionals believed the practical effects story. The real CGI revolution had happened in secret, hidden behind lies and misdirection. Fact 10. The original Wolverine, who got screwed over. Before Hugh Jackman, another actor was already cast as Wolverine and had spent months preparing for the role. Dougray Scott from Mission Impossible was originally cast as Wolverine but got trapped in scheduling conflicts. Scott had trained for months, studied the character, and was mentally prepared to become a superhero icon. Then Mission Impossible 2 went over schedule. and Scott couldn't fulfill his X-Men commitment. The studio couldn't wait and had to replace him immediately. Scott lost what would have been a career-defining role and watched someone else become the icon he was supposed to be. Years later, Scott reportedly remained bitter about losing Wolverine, claiming the character should have been his and that his version would have been superior. The what-if scenarios haunted him for years. Fact 9. The senator whose real politics inspired the villain. The anti-mutant Senator Kelly wasn't just a fictional character. He was based on real politicians whose anti-minority rhetoric inspired the character's dialogue and policies. The writers studied actual hate speech from real senators and congressmen, using their exact phrasing and arguments to create Kelly's anti-mutant campaign. Art was imitating life in the most disturbing way possible. Some of the most chilling anti-mutant speeches in the movie were adapted directly from real political rhetoric about minorities, immigrants, and marginalized communities. The parallels were intentionally obvious to anyone paying attention. The movie became an allegory for real political hate, with actual politicians' words put in the mouth of a fictional villain. The commentary was more direct and dangerous than audiences realized. Fact 8. The Brotherhood actors who method acted hatred. The Brotherhood of Mutants actors allegedly used method acting to genuinely hate the X-Men actors during filming. This wasn't just professional competition, it was orchestrated psychological warfare. Director Bryan Singer encouraged the Brotherhood actors to maintain their antagonistic relationships off-camera, believing it would improve their on-screen chemistry as villains. The result was genuine animosity between cast members that continued long after filming wrapped. Some actors reported feeling genuinely uncomfortable around their Brotherhood colleagues at premieres and promotional events. The psychological manipulation worked for the movie, but allegedly damaged real relationships between people who should have been celebrating their shared success. Fact 7. The Stryker connection that sets up everything. Years before X2 introduced William Stryker as the main villain, references to him were hidden throughout the original X-Men. The conspiracy was being planted from the very beginning. Careful viewers can spot Stryker's name in background documents, computer screens, and dialogue that seems unimportant. The entire Weapon X program was being referenced and established long before audiences knew what it meant. This wasn't just sequel planning, it was a massive conspiracy storyline that spanned multiple movies, with clues and connections that most viewers missed entirely. The level of long-term planning was unprecedented for superhero movies, creating a connected universe before anyone called it that. But the real conspiracy was happening behind the cameras. Fact 6. The studio's secret war against Marvel. Fox was allegedly at war with Marvel during production, fighting over character rights, creative control, and future movie plans. This wasn't just business negotiations, it was corporate warfare that nearly destroyed the movie. Marvel wanted more creative control over their characters, while Fox wanted complete ownership of any X-Men universe they created. The legal battles were vicious and ongoing throughout filming. Several scenes had to be reshot or edited because of legal disputes over how certain characters could be portrayed. The studio was literally changing the movie to spite Marvel's demands. The corporate warfare continued for years, eventually leading to the complex rights issues that plagued X-Men movies for decades. The seeds of future legal nightmares were planted during this first film. Fact 5. The Cerebro sequence that broke budgets. The Cerebro sequence, where Professor X searches for mutants around the world, cost more than some entire movies. The visual effects were so expensive and complex that they nearly bankrupted the production. The studio allegedly went millions over budget just for that one sequence, requiring emergency funding and creative accounting to keep the movie alive. Executives considered cutting the scene entirely to save money. But the Cerebro sequence was crucial to establishing Professor X's powers and the global scope of the mutant problem. Without it, the entire movie's mythology would have collapsed. The financial gamble paid off when audiences were amazed by the sequence, but the production almost died, creating one of its most memorable moments. Fact 4. The Magneto prison break that used real torture techniques. Ian McKellen's Magneto escape sequence from the plastic prison wasn't just movie magic, it was based on actual torture and interrogation techniques used by real governments. The production allegedly consulted with former intelligence operatives and military interrogators to make Magneto's imprisonment and escape as psychologically realistic as possible. The isolation techniques, sensory deprivation, and psychological manipulation shown in the prison scenes were drawn from actual torture methods used on political prisoners. McKellen reportedly found the research material so disturbing that he had nightmares during filming. The villainous character was becoming uncomfortably real through exposure to genuine governmental brutality. Fact 3. The rogue powers that nearly killed Anna Paquin. Anna Paquin's rogue was supposed to have much more dangerous powers, including scenes that put the young actress in genuine physical danger during filming. Original scripts called for Rogue to accidentally kill or seriously injure other characters through skin contact. The scenes required Paquin to have physical contact with actors wearing special effects makeup containing potentially harmful chemicals. Several test scenes resulted in allergic reactions and chemical burns for both Paquin and her scene partners. The production kept pushing dangerous contact scenes despite mounting evidence they weren't safe. Only after multiple hospital visits and insurance company threats did they tone down Rogue's powers and eliminate the most dangerous contact scenes. Paquin's health was being risked for dramatic effect. Fact 2. The Jean Grey Phoenix setup that spoiled everything. Famke Janssen's Jean Grey was secretly being set up for the Phoenix storyline from her very first scene, but the foreshadowing was so obvious it allegedly spoiled future movies for careful viewers. Hidden throughout her dialogue and character moments were references to fire, rebirth, and cosmic power that wouldn't pay off until later films. But comic book fans immediately recognized the Phoenix setup. The studio was so confident in their long-term planning that they were spoiling their own sequels in the first movie. Every Jean Grey scene contained clues about her eventual transformation and death. When The Last Stand finally revealed the Phoenix storyline, comic book fans claimed they'd seen it coming since 2000. The surprise was ruined by the production's own overconfidence in their secret planning. But even the Phoenix conspiracy pales in comparison to the most explosive revelation of all. Fact 1. The government conspiracy that nearly killed the movie. Here's the truth. They never wanted you to know. The US government allegedly tried to shut down X-Men during production because the movie's mutant registration storyline too closely resembled actual classified government programs for monitoring minority communities. Federal agents allegedly visited the set multiple times, demanding script changes and threatening legal action if certain scenes weren't modified. The movie's parallels to real government surveillance programs were too close for comfort. But here's the most chilling part. Some of the anti-mutant government programs shown in the movie were actually happening to real communities. The registration databases, the tracking technology, the systematic persecution, it was all real, just hidden from public view. The movie wasn't just entertainment. It was accidentally the most accurate whistleblowing documentary about government overreach ever disguised as a superhero story. The fictional Mutant Registration Act was based on real programs that were classified at the highest levels. Writers had unknowingly stumbled onto actual government surveillance programs through their research into the historical persecution of minority groups. What they thought was creative extrapolation was actually the current classified reality. Federal agencies couldn't stop the movie without admitting their programs existed, so they tried to control the narrative through script changes and behind-the-scenes pressure. But the core message about government persecution of different communities remained intact. The movie that launched the modern superhero era wasn't just about mutants, it was accidentally about real government programs that are still operating today. The fiction was so close to classified reality that it became reality, exposing surveillance and persecution programs that were supposed to stay secret forever. People in government agencies responsible for monitoring minority communities allegedly recognized their own methods and technologies in the movie's anti-mutant sequences. The entertainment was accidentally perfect documentation of real oppression. Which part shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments.